Everybody's wondering, what's next for the United Methodist Church? I am recording this, you can kind of tell, during Advent, and I would say about 10 months before the scheduled General Conference of 2022. One of my struggles with that question is that really nobody knows what's going to happen. But also, is the problem that I have is that the people of my church, and I'm a pastor, and I don't have any say in what's going to happen. And that is contrary to my kind of makeup, I guess. And so the question for me is, what are we going to do? And so the title of this series that I want to present to you is What's Next for My United Methodist Church? As a Christian, as a United Methodist, and as a pastor, what happens to the denomination really is secondary to what's going to happen to my church. And so I want to address that. The bishop and the bishop's office, I am from the Florida Annual Conference, the bishop says you just sit and just wait and just stay. And well, that's kind of what I tell my dog, right? Sit, stay. But that doesn't suit me, and it probably doesn't suit you either. I want to have a little more say in the process. What do I have control over as a pastor, and what do we as a church, as a local church, have control over? When I look at Methodist news, and I'm sure you have seen that too, you see churches leaving for one reason or another. I see my colleagues and pastors around the denomination who are becoming activists in one direction or the other. They are getting involved in some particular way. But what about me? And what about my church? What do we do? And I've decided to facilitate some conversation in my own church and hopefully in yours to prepare 3 videos, actually 4, this is an introductory one, but 3 videos on, depending on where you land in the vote of your own church of the LGBTQ issue, where are you going to land? And I think it's important before you cross a bridge to know where it's going, right? And so to be able to look in those directions, I think will be helpful for us. But here in the intro, I would like to say a couple of things. When I watch these videos on YouTube, I want to know who it is that's talking, right? Where are you coming from? And so let me just tell you who I am. My name is Craig Nelson, and I'm a missionary kid. My parents served in Costa Rica, and hence I grew up in Costa Rica. I grew up speaking Spanish. And that is part of who I am. Interpreting, not translating, but interpreting is something that I have had to do all of my life. Way back when, I was an employee of the General Board of Global Ministries. I served in an immigration program there. After that, I decided that God was calling me into the local church, and so I had to get a Master of Divinity, and I went to Emory University, which is a legacy progressive school of theology in Atlanta, Georgia. And then later on, I got a Doctor of Ministry from Gordon Conwell Theological Seminary, which is a reformed, more conservative seminary. And I'm a product of both. And this is a big problem for me, because I am not of one mind in this. And what I have found is that the churches that I have been serving for the last 20 years are not of one mind either. And suffice it to say that I have not signed up for the Wesley Covenant Association, and I have not signed up for the Reconciling Ministries Network either. In either direction, there are enough adjectives in front of my name, behind my name, and of our church that I don't think we need to engage with those kind of things or sign up for them anyway. I have served a rural church. I've served a couple big steeple churches. I have had small staff. I've had large staff. I've been a district superintendent in the Miami, Florida area, the most diverse district of our conference. And I am currently the pastor of First United Methodist Church of Boca Raton. I've decided just over the last several years of watching all of this go on, that at some point, as neutral as I would like to be or my local church would like to be, we are going to have to settle the issue of homosexuality. Where I stand on that is a whole nother video series. That's not what I want to address here. But I do think that kind of whether you stay or whether you go depends on where the pastor is headed. Not exclusively, but that matters. And so we as pastors have to articulate, at some point we've got to articulate where we are coming from and what is important to us. And then we have to decide where the congregation is going to land. And this is dangerous stuff. It's dangerous because I was talking with a pediatric psychiatrist. I was actually just visiting with him and his wife, and we were talking about all kinds of things. But when it came time to talk about kind of this issue and people leaving the church, he said, we are diminished when anyone leaves the church, whether a progressive or a conservative person. And mathematically, that's not a very profound statement. If somebody leaves, you've got one less. But from the health of the church, from the perspective of us being the body of Christ, when anyone leaves with the perspective that they had, we are diminished. And we as the United Methodist Church are being diminished, and on a regular basis. And this particular one is very weighty for all of us. And the question that I think we've got to address in the local church and pastors, we as pastors, is what does God want us to do? How do we follow Jesus? Not our own whims or the path of least resistance or whatever the options are, but what is God's will for us together? I don't have to make a decision about God's will in your life. General Conference is doing that. They're just determining what the will of God is for the rest of us. But I do need to decide what God's will is for me and for this congregation that I am enjoying being in. And in our system, the way that works is that you have a meeting and you have a vote, and it has to go one way or the other. And so for me, one of the biggest questions is, are we going to determine God's will, or are we just going to find the preference of the majority? These videos are intended to surface the repercussions of a decision. That if you decide to go in one particular way or the other, then you are going to land in one of these different areas. My intention is to make a presentation about kind of the realities of these three things: staying in the United Methodist Church, going to another Methodist offshoot, whether that be an existing one or a new one, or becoming independent. I guess those are 4 options, but I'm going to do that in 3 videos. That is what I want to present to you all. And then following that, to have the congregation discuss it. And I'm going to have a series of questions. If you would like to send those to me or ask for those, if you'd like to to email me if you want to send me comments. I'd love to hear them. If you want to send me cookies, please send me cookies. 'Tis the season. Either way, my email address, and I'll have this on the bottom, but my email address is cnelson, for Craig Nelson, at FUMC, First United Methodist Church of Boca Raton, BOCARATON.org. Just finally, and I'm going to say this at the end of every video, the problem of the United Methodist Church is a spiritual one. It's not an organizational one. If we could have solved this with organization, we would have done that years ago. And so whatever discussions that we have and whatever decisions that we are making need to be bathed in prayer. I'm praying for you, you pray for me, and let's see where God would lead us. God bless you.